Hello and welcome back to the Thought Leader Recruiter podcast. I'm Sam Bylett, and today I'm joined by Nathan Ware, Director at Axe Recruiting. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you making the time for me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, Nathan. Nathan, what's the story? How did you end up in recruitment? Was it something you always saw yourself doing?
It's one of those things. I think everyone who's worked in a profession has been approached by a recruiter at some point in time in their life, myself included. And I actually started in sales and was working for a sales corporation, a Fortune 5. And there was this recruiter in my town who would reach out to sales talent specifically about different opportunities. In fact, he had placed me at the company I was working at, but he would also revisit sales talent that he knew was strong every few years to see how we were doing, take our temperature on future opportunities, et cetera. So he's quite good at the follow-up. And ultimately, I got recruited by a completely different agency to actually work in sales recruiting for their company. So I was recruited by recruiters to do sales recruiting because they were looking for people with sales and business acumen that they thought would be good transfer of skills to be a sales specific recruiter. So that's where I got my first exposure and appetite for recruitment, really hearing out a recruiter and joining a small recruiting company and realizing that a lot of those sales skills are completely transferable.
Yeah, for sure. So, a lot of people say, recruitment is basically sales, right? That's it's a massive know-how to have for sure.
100%.
So yeah, tell me about Axe Recruiting. What kind of companies do you guys typically work with?
Yeah, so here at Axe, I guess we go against the standard advice where they suggest you maybe niche down as a business or service offering or product, right? And you'll notice there's a lot of agencies out there that are highly specialized and niche, and that's well and good because you will capture more of a hyper focused market through your SEO, messaging, types of client references, referrals, et cetera, and maybe become that big fish in the smaller pond. But for whatever reason, intuitively, we actually started as a sales recruiting agency ourselves. And our clients were coming back to us being like, well, can you find us a CTO? Can you find us a full stack developer? Could you find us a CMO? So we started realizing our clients were happy with our services and they were expecting more and asking more of us. So why would we limit ourselves? So we decided to open up our service offering across the board. And really, it came down to the fact that when you have winning systems and winning formulas, and a willingness to understand maybe a new industry that you're not necessarily an expert in, but you're a studious person and have the competency to understand your customer, you can expand into a wide region of services and capture different departments within your pre-existing clients. So that was helpful. And then we also thought globally, and we always thought globally. And we serve Canada, the United States, Europe, the GCC. We're in UAE. We don't really say no to much unless it doesn't make sense on, the costing structure, or maybe on currency exchange. We obviously have to have the right value return, and we also have to believe that we can deliver on the service. So, we've really broadened ourselves to think globally. And I think post pandemic, not to bring up the P word, a lot of companies got into this, nomadic, remote, maybe we could work from anywhere, maybe we could source talent from anywhere. And in fact, a lot of our clients we work with now, it's so interesting. A lot of them are very interesting startups, some in the United States, some in Canada, and they're sourcing talent in India, they're sourcing talent in UAE. So, they're looking for employer of records or agencies that have that reach as well to help them facilitate that and guide them. So, I think it's better to think globally, even though you may be a local or medium business. And that's really our mantra from day one, was to just expand, be big, all services, and touch all corners of the globe, because companies don't have employees sitting in one office in one city anymore like they used to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you want to cast that net as wide as possible, right?
That's it. Yeah. So that's the way we think.
Yeah, absolutely. I came across this stat the other day. So 69% of employers are struggling to find candidates with the right qualifications.
Hmm.
And it seems like it's getting worse with how fast tech is moving. Are you
Yes.
seeing that play out with your clients?
Yes, we do. In fact, some of our best opportunities, at the end of the day, a recruiting agency, you're getting a phone call or an email from a prospective client because hiring is not easy, right? If it were easy, they wouldn't be outsourcing and paying somebody else like us to do it. So they've already hit a ceiling, they've hit their head up against the wall. You're absolutely right. Technology and talent are not moving in synchronicity. The good news is a lot of people on the technical side tend to be fairly studious and highly engaged with technology and, keeping up as much as they can. But it's so true. We've got carbon capture clients, right? So carbon capture, green tech, very new, very niched down, and they're looking for people who have transferable skills because at the end of the day, this might be the first time a design engineer is touching a carbon capture or green energy type concept, but maybe they've basically accomplished a lot of the tasks or duties or responsibilities in oil and gas or somewhere else, right? So it's about figuring out how those skills transfer and does the person have the capacity to learn and are they a self starter and learner? Because when you're looking for someone in a new industry, but with 5 to 10 years of experience, you're going to run into a problem to your point with how fast technology is going and the direction the industry is shifting in, right? They just don't exist. They're either a veteran of an adjacent industry and they're highly studious and keeping up, or they have no work experience, but they do understand carbon capture from an academic standpoint, or they do understand machine learning from an academic standpoint, but they haven't really built anything substantial as of yet because they're fresh out of school, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's totally understandable. Yeah, for sure. And obviously, as we know, the job market is feeling pretty brutal out there for candidates right now. Are you helping them cut through the noise, and how are you helping them stand out?
Honestly, I think if you are not working with a recruiter, you are putting yourself in a pretty precarious position in modern times. We're head office out of Canada, but again, we work globally. So head office is here in Canada. And, there's a big shift going on right now, obviously with tariff talks, AI technology that's coming through the pipe as well. So there's a lot of conversations on the tech side. There's a lot of conversations on the industrial and manufacturing and steel and aluminum side. So there's been, we're forecasting, I think TD Bank, a bank here in Canada, has forecasted another 100,000 job losses for Canadians by the end of 2025. And that's tariff related. And then the backfill of that is also going to be a lot of white collar back office positions being wiped out by artificial intelligence as well. So it's a bit of a double edged sword in that regard. So, speaking with recruiters is what you need to be doing, partnering up with one or two recruiters, establishing a relationship with them, being on their radar, being in their ATS system, being front and center. Having an ambassador at the end of the day is what having a recruiter is, right? We have hundreds of relationships with companies. We know their hiring managers. If we've done successful placements for them in the past and we think you may be a good candidate and you're in our ATS and we find you, they're going to trust us. They don't know you yet as a candidate. They do know me. They do know my team if we've worked with them historically. So we already have that instant rapport and trust because we've worked with them and succeeded in the past. To stand out, you really do need someone to break that door down for you because everyone is competing right now. To your point, there's the layoffs and industry shifts. There's, depending on which country you're in and how the demographics are made up, there's massive changes to immigration that are affecting things. Canada, not to constantly be bringing it up, but there's a housing shortage. There's a population increase due to imbalanced immigration. There's mass layoffs, there's tariffs, there's artificial intelligence and technology jobs with layoffs. So the landscape is moving and shifting. It's so mutable right now. You need an ambassador, you need a coach. So at the end of the day, we'll put people in front of clients that we think are a good fit And it's important to seek out a recruiting partner, even proactively, while you're gainfully employed, and just keep your ear to the ground to understand what's happening.
Yeah, very, very much uncertain times right now in Canada, especially. It's worrying when you kind of listed like that, but
Yeah.
these things have a way of kind of working themselves out. Hopefully,
That's it. That's it, right? Like, a great example is, when the tractor was invented, farmers were like, "Oh, what are we going to do? We're going to be out of work," right? So we also have to keep in mind that work is going to evolve. It is going to shift. Will there be transfer pains or growing pains while we figure out what that's going to look like? Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, we are going to.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And when companies come to you saying they just can't find good people, what's your honest take on that? Like, what are you telling them?
The reality is, a lot of them are honest with us. If they're a well funded startup company, Series A, pre seed, what have you, they know they don't have the bandwidth, right? Like, founders and co founders are going to be sifting through resumes and sourcing candidates day in, day out while they're building out strategic positions in their team. It's not going to happen, right? So that's kind of a no brainer. Sometimes they go and spend budgets on Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all this, but at the end of the day, they still realize those platforms can be gamified by applicants that still aren't a fit. So those systems aren't perfect. And it's another administrative platform that you need to manage, a web application you need to manage, right? So it's still more management and time. So, when you work with a recruiting agency, this is what we do 24/7 around the clock. I mean, our agency chases the sun. We're working West Coast California, we're working India, we're all over the place. So we're chasing the sun constantly, and we're doing this around the clock. It's what we do. So we take that off your hands, and you can focus on other aspects of your business. So most of the time they come to us because they're honest about the fact that they haven't paid enough time and attention to it, or they don't want to, or they try to take it on to save some cost, but realize how much of a job, full-time job, it actually ends up becoming. And other times they are looking for such specialized talent that even if they have the time, they may not have the network, they may not have the reach and resources to find those people as well. So it really depends.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to that kind of 69% stat, do you think there is generally a talent shortage, or are just companies just maybe being a bit too narrow to what they're looking for?
I think there is a talent shortage in specialized talent for emerging markets, yes, but there are adjacent industries where if you're willing to train and you're willing to help them, bridge that gap and ramp them into the new industry, but they have foundational mathematical skills, design engineering skills, scientific skills that you need to actually get your product or service to market anyways, then this is just the nature of innovation, right? Oppenheimer, for example, they hadn't successfully built a nuclear bomb, but they got together the right minds with the right capabilities and the right skill sets to do something novel, right? So, in order to do that, that's exactly what you have to do in these industries. What's for the best and brightest within the sphere of the industry or an adjacent industry that we're trying to bridge that gap and move technology and progress with? Who are those people going to be, and how are they going to be on our team? Elon Musk, I guarantee, has people on SpaceX, et cetera, who probably were in space engineering and aerospace engineering, but a lot of the concepts and the envelope pushing that they were doing was novel and new and untested. Hundreds of rockets were crashed before the successful launches, et cetera. So it's just about finding those people that can bridge that gap. So yeah, there's a shortage, but there's a responsibility to the employer to fill that gap. And whether that's coming out of academia, you're coming fresh out of academia with the latest concepts, ideas, or a novel product or service you want to bring to market, you've got to be that visionary, right? Especially as a founder or a progressive company, you have to have the vision, and you have to help the talent stretch their minds and their skill set to get there. But there's people right on the fringe that are ready to make that leap. So it's time intensive. and training intensive, right? So a lot of people do want turnkey, hit the ground running stuff all the time. That's well and good if you're looking for an industrial supply salesperson because they've been around for a century, right? But if you're looking to do something novel, there needs to be a different expectation on how you're going to ramp that talent and what your responsibility is for them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And we touched briefly on this earlier, but the tech has kind of completely transformed over the last few years. New skills, new job roles. Some jobs don't even exist anymore. Do you think companies are keeping up, or do you think they're still kind of hiring like it's 2019?
They were, I think they're hiring like it's 2050. What we saw this coming. We saw this coming. What I think, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I do get scared about how fast artificial intelligence is moving in technology, and I'm watching, right? IBM just laid off, I believe the number was 200 or so back office HR employees from their organization. I think it was 200. It might even be a more significant number. I'll double check that stat quickly. But the point is, all their back office HR people have been laid off. I think Microsoft has been moving in a similar direction as well. So, yeah, 200 HR staff with AI agents, IBM. So that was fairly sudden. And I think people are like, oh, ChatGPT is cute and I can ask it to do this or that. But there's some serious players and some serious innovations, even outside of OpenAI, that are doing some incredible stuff. There are platforms out there that are specifically focused AI agents that will build you applications, right? So they'll scale the application before you deploy it to AWS or what you need to do to get it off the ground. Before you even bring in a CTO, you could have the majority of your framework built, having never coded in your life. So, things are getting very, very interesting. And everyone's like, oh, we're going to move to blue collar. Everyone's going to be laying bricks. I just watched a video this morning of a robot that can lay brick and smooth cement faster than any human I've ever seen. So,
Crazy.
it's going to be robotics in conjunction with AI. So I don't think any job is necessarily necessary. I think maybe we might be looking at potential even legislation to limit artificial intelligence or AI agents or robotics or the combination of the three to allow humans to remain employed because unless we move to a universal basic income system or we come up with 100 new novel industries that humans can work in outside of this, the ones that are being, supplanted by artificial intelligence, there is going to be a lot of disruption. There is going to be a lot of disruption to my point earlier, referencing the tractor and farmers. It's going to take time, right? You need less farmers. You need less humans in the field than you did 1,000 years ago to farm, right? So what did those people end up doing? Well, they're all in skyscrapers now. Well, now the skyscraper people are going to get replaced by agents in a lot of ways, right? So now what are they going to go do next, right? So that's kind of the question. What are human beings going to go do next?
Yeah, big question. Big question. It's interesting, isn't it? It's fascinating, interesting, worrying. It's everything really. But I think again, we'll go with it and we'll see what happens. But I'm sure,
We have
like
no
you said,
choice, man. We just got to strap in and go for the ride. Like we get up every day, we worry about our families, we worry about our kids, we worry about our jobs, we worry about feeding our family, and every day that goes by, AI is coming and accelerating, and it's an inevitable snowball that we've started, and we just got to see what comes down the pipeline.
let's not worry about it too much.
That's it.
But when someone's just not getting interviews, say, what's the first thing you tell them to fix? Is it resume, networking, LinkedIn, or is it kind of a combination of everything?
There's I've got a winning form. Well, my winning formula is for once you've actually gotten the interview. So what you're asking is why they're not getting interviews. I am a firm believer in a one-page resume, maximum if you have to, two. But people do not have the attention span, believe it or not, for consuming multi-page resumes. And that's a basic thing. That's a very, very basic thing. So oftentimes I'll look at someone's CV, their professional resume, how they've positioned it and prioritized experience, et cetera, and how are they standing out? right? The first two lines when we read that resume, how are you standing out immediately? What are you stating to stand out and not sound like everybody else and not just, get discarded in the pile? Additionally, to our point earlier, you need an ambassador. It's virtually impossible. I don't care if you're applying on LinkedIn jobs, Indeed, direct on the company website. Don't do it that way. If you are going to go applying without a recruitment ambassador, my suggestion to you to get the interview is do what others are unwilling to do. If the company office is in your city and it's an in-house job, right? It's not remote, it's in office. Show up. CV in hand, do your research on who the hiring manager is. Ask to speak with them. Say you have an appointment, and this is going outside the box, right? But be aggressive. Be aggressive and show them that you want that opportunity, right? I think that goes a long way, and we've really moved away from that. I remember when I was 16, I had to go just to get my summer jobs. I had to go show up with my CV, dress well, make sure I was there when the doors opened at 9 o'clock in the morning or seven if it was, doing landscaping or whatever. And I would show up prompt, early, well dressed, resume in hand, shake hands, introduce myself, turn in my CV. I got more summer jobs as a kid that way, and my first jobs that way than just through web applications. And web applications obviously have accelerated. I think it's the norm now, and it's hard to access. I get it. It's hard to access certain buildings and certain forms of employment. But in the case that you can, there's a physical building in your town and that's the job you're applying for, show up. I encourage you to show up. Even if that you don't end up making contact and you get stopped by the gatekeeper at the front desk, they're going to say, Nathan stopped by to talk to you, Bob, about so and so job. He said he had an appointment, da da da. He left his CV. You're going to make an impression at least to some degree, right? But my recommendation is get an ambassador, show up if you can, like the olden days. Also call, there's people's information's all over the internet. You could source somebody's phone number, you can source their email, personal email. You can go around the HR manager and go directly to the hiring manager if you find out who they are on LinkedIn. Get creative. It's got to be an aggressive form of creativity to show you're hungrier than the next person, right? And just get that opportunity. You've got to be hunting that opportunity. And that's what we do as a recruiting agency on your behalf and vice versa. We're aggressive on both sides of the ball. We work for the client, but at the end of the day, a great candidate, we're working for them too because we want the perfect marriage. So we're an ambassador for the candidate just as much as we are a recruiting, sourcing hunter for the client, right? So I'd say that's the first step. And if I can expand on that in terms
Please.
of resumes and interviews, make sure you do your homework on the hiring manager, the company. Have they been in the news lately? Do your due diligence. Lots of people go in there and don't even know what the company does, sells, how long they've been around, what's going on in news articles, etc. Or even know that my hiring manager attended XYZ university or likes golf. Like everyone has a digital footprint. You could figure this out. It'll show that you're proactive and that you've done your homework as well. And the number one thing you can do in your first interview in after doing your homework and asking great questions, you have to treat it like you're interviewing them, and they'll feel that by you asking great questions around the subjects that you've researched on. Never leave an interview without looking the hiring manager dead in the eyes and saying, Sam, is there any reason today why you wouldn't endorse me for this job? That's the number one
Yeah.
line you can say because Sam, you might be interviewing me and you're like, well, Nate, we got a few other candidates to review and we're going to be talking to them in a few weeks, but we'll get back to you. I'm like, Sam, it's just you and I here. We can be candid with one another. Honestly, I just want your honest opinion. Do you see any reason after our interview today why you wouldn't endorse me for this position? And now I've put you in the hot seat to say yes or no. And you can do what you want with that. You could be like, "Whoa," they will remember you either way for that because they will get that feeling where they're like, whoa, like he
Yeah.
just reversed that on me. And now I actually have to think about that. And I
Yeah.
have to think about my answer. which usually is they still stick to, well, we'll get back to you, etc. But that will hit,
Mm.
that resonate with them one way or the other. Secondly, follow up email, obviously thanking them for their time, etc. And then if you don't hear back in the timeline they said, phone call or office visit. And this all seems desperate and aggressive, but like that's literally how you do it. I've negotiated higher salaries than my peers. I've gotten virtually every single job I've wanted for the most part, unless I know where I screwed up in the interview process and made a mistake, because we're all human and sometimes that happens. I've also shown, another thing you can do is show up with a 90-day plan. I don't care if it's a technical role and you're just kind of winging a sprint idea of the technology stack, etc. Or if it's a sales position and you're like, this is how I would penetrate my territory and market over the next 90 days with the limited information you have. I've walked in interviews with 90-day plans already made, so the combination of those things, it's a winning formula to burn yourself into the brain of the hiring manager. I don't think people are applying themselves that hard when apply, to be honest with you. And then they're wondering why they're not getting a result in a candidate saturated market, right? With limited opportunities and with specialized skills.
Yeah, man, that's amazing advice. I love that bit where you said there. That's really powerful stuff. Yeah, anyone listening to this should take that advice for sure.
If you don't get anything else out of this, when you are interviewing, put the hiring manager on the spot and ask them for the job before you leave that office.
That's amazing. I love that. And what do you think is going to shape recruitment over the next few years? What should people be ready for?
Yeah, like everything else, artificial intelligence, particularly AI agents. So, I think services are going to expand, right? With agents, people will still outsource recruiting and outsource marketing and outsource different services, right? Maybe sales agents, etc. But these companies will be leveraging AI agents and AI technology to deliver on your end. So maybe you as a company don't have to worry about, hiring AI agents or developing proprietary artificial intelligence solutions. You can outsource a company that's got a blend of that human and AI element. So I think it's always going to be a blend of human beings plus AI agents and AI technology stacked together. I think it's going to be weird to talk to, even if they're as articulate and natural sounding as you and I are on this call, Sam. I think people are going to tire of knowing they're not talking to another human being, right? And that it's just basically gathering these inputs and going to spit it back out as a summary to a human who's going to make a decision about you. It's these human to human relationships are going to forever be important, and in my opinion maybe increase in importance in a lot of ways. But maybe recruiting firms are going to get leaner. Maybe they will need less sourcers and they'll rely on AI agents sourcing technologies. But maybe that means you can grow your recruiting team because you're sourcing that much faster. And then your actual recruiters who are just dealing with the conversations day to day can focus on conversations. Now, the data entry, follow ups, email sequences, pushing candidates to clients, etc. Again, AI agents probably could scope that work. But all I think that means to recruiters is recruiters can do what they do best, which is having great conversations like the one we're having now with great candidates about great opportunities. And that's what they can do all day with a lot of automation and support on the back.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And what's next for Axe Recruiting? Is there any exciting projects on the horizon? Are you looking to expand into any new markets?
Yeah, I mean, we're cracking Singapore right now. We're trying to move with technologically friendly and good trade agreement countries as well. And leaders. The reality is the West is far behind in a lot of ways. And people don't like hearing that. Canadians don't like hearing that Canadians are 200 years behind. Americans especially don't like to hear it. But if you're well traveled and you're well connected to the global business landscape, incredible things are happening worldwide. Incredible things. Incredible things that from architecture to technological advancements. And so we very much want to be a part of that innovations. Like I said earlier, we're part of carbon capture companies. We're part of artificial intelligence companies and helping them scale. We've definitely incorporated artificial intelligence into our services to help our teams work faster and more efficiently so they can focus on the important conversations more effectively as well. And I think we're just going to continue to expand on that, as well expand our service offering to support the different needs of our clients, right? Because startups have different needs than maybe a Fortune 500 that's got a lot of legacy systems. They will have the budget, but they might not want to necessarily do all that AI shifting. They may outsource it on the HR and recruiting side. We'll see. We'll see what happens. IBM decided to in-house their innovation, but they're IBM. So, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, but we're there to support our clients as they shift and make these leaps and bounds in technology. I don't think AI is going to be doing carbon capture anytime soon. Maybe supporting, but design engineers, we're going to still need those, and we're going to need data leads and data science leads and software engineers up to a certain point until maybe AI is better at that than them as well. And then they're building on top of that. But we'll see. We're just going with the flow, but we are keeping up with our technology stacks. We are keeping up with artificial intelligence, and it's been integrated, but it's not exclusively how we operate. We want to stay human as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And for our audience, how can they find out a bit more about Axe Recruited and connect with yourself?
Yeah, if anyone's curious to learn more about Axe Recruiting and what we do and our services, you can visit www.axerecruiting.com. You can always shoot an email to our general email as well, which is info@axerecruiting.com. That's AXE, Axe with an E.
Perfect. Thanks, Nathan. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate it as well. Great questions, great conversation.
Perfect. Thanks again.
All right, cheers.